Hi everyone, VGT Adam here. I recently saw Dragon Ball Superhero. I would have gotten this up earlier, but by the time I saw it, it was kind of late. So I'm kind of just waking up now to record this. But yeah. So I guess unlike last time, where I was kind of comparing the previous versions of Bardock and Broly and Gogeta and stuff like that in comparison to this movie. This one is mostly new stuff, so it's not too much to compare until maybe like towards the end of this. But I do have some like preamble, I guess, before like the movie proper. Uh, when this was first announced and they said it was going to be more Gohan and Piccolo focused, I'm like, oh, so they're just pandering to the fans because they were all crying about the fact that Gohan wasn't in a 100% pure blood Saiyan movie. Like the Broly movie was about Goku, Vegeta, and Broly. It was about pure heart Saiyans, pure blood, not pure hearted, pure blooded Saiyans. And I know that like Goku and Vegeta definitely get too much screen time. I understand that, but it was a story about them. Gohan had no place in that. But now this is a story about Gohan and Piccolo. Other characters still get kind of shafted, but it is what it is sometimes. Um, and then like early on, there were rumors about the look of this is going to be unlike any other Dragon Ball movie we've seen, and like people were predicting it's going to be 3D, which it turned out, yeah, it's 3D. But the more we saw of it, the it looked pretty good, and like honestly, yeah, the look of the movie, the CG looks pretty good. There's no any real complaints about how it looks. It fits itself well. Um, uh, but yeah, anyways, like there's not too much to go into besides trying to avoid spoilers. Um, by the way, this podcast will be full of spoilers, like from the get go. But I'm just talking about how me, like early on, I was trying to avoid spoilers. But the internet being the internet, you find out some things anyway. So, but yeah, this podcast will be full of spoilers. So if you haven't watched Dragon Ball Superhero, or you don't care or whatever, now if you haven't watched it and you want to, get out now, come back later. And if you don't care about spoilers or you don't care about Dragon Ball ever, well, for that second one, what are you doing here? But if you don't care about spoilers, then I guess it's fine. Or if you saw the movie, it's fine. But yeah. So now, because I'm not usually what I like to do is I like to see a movie and then come back and record it because it's fresh in my mind. But because I got home so late, like I'm had to go off my memory as best I can. It's about exactly how things went. But the movie starts off with like a little 2D recap of stuff regarding the Red Ribbon Army. So like you actually see Dragon Ball um, in modern HD uh, digital computer drawings. It's all the intro was all 2D, so like it was cool to see like Kid Goku and the Red Ribbon Army like in modern uh, artwork, I guess. Um, and they just kind of recap the whole thing about like the Red Ribbon Army and the Dr. Dro creating the androids and them getting destroyed and everything like that. And constantly they actually do it quite a few times in the movie, like doing like recaps of what happened, either for those who forgot or for the rare case that for some reason someone who hasn't seen Dragon Ball wanted in here and can follow in the plot, which is smart, but it's annoying if you know like a lot about Dragon Ball or everything about Dragon Ball. But it makes sense for people who may have forgotten or like newcomers, like people who did start on Super maybe. So it makes sense, but yeah. And constantly talking about Cell a lot. Gee, I wonder why I'm talking about Cell a lot. Maybe there's some kind of foreshadowing. Anyway, um, and then we get explanations about Magenta, which is the son of Commander Red, and Dr. Hedo, the grandson of Dr. Gero. So, believe it or not, there's some really quick shots of family members to kind of explain things. They never like directly say exactly who's related to who, but to me, it was more believable that Dr. Gero had a grandson than Commander Red having a son. So, like, it showed on Magenta's desk that Commander Red, I guess the wife or the mother was that one. Oh, I don't remember her name. Let me check out the manga really quick. Hang on. Oh god. Okay, here we go. I found it in volume 8. I think it says page 122. It's chapter 93. Uh, Colonel Violet, which was just I'm guessing originally supposed to be. She's in the like was it 2 panels out of this whole manga? She's like Yeah, she's like barely here. She's a background character. Yeah, Colonel Violet implied that that was the mother of Magenta and who married Red, which I find pretty unbelievable. Like, if anything, to me, Commander Red seems like the kind of person, because of his whole like egotistical stature and Napoleon complex, which is a misconception about Napoleon, but whatever. His Napoleon complex. It'd make more sense if he raped a random woman to get a son than to have like a consensual relationship with another person in the Red Ribbon Army. But I don't think Dragon Ball. Well, OG Dragon Ball would make that kind of joke. Modern Dragon Ball would never ever get away with the idea of someone getting raped, birth by rape. But it makes more sense to me for Commander Red. But whatever. Um, and then for Doctor Hedo, that they had Doctor Gero, and like in Dragon Ball Fighters and also in Xenoverse and even a little bit of Kakarot, there was Android 21, who they said is based off of Gero's wife, but that was never canon until this movie. So while Android 21 herself is not canon, how she looks and the fact that she's based off Gero's wife is now canon because they show that design in this movie, saying how they made a son, and yes, that son was Android 16, or more accurately, Gero's son, which Android 16 is based off of. Meaning that, Gero and not Android 21 had not Android 16, and then it makes sense to me that not Android 16 could have sired a son before he died. So I think that part is actually pretty cool, that either like non-canon things becoming canon, or like fan theories, or like just like things that were never truly explained are finally canon in terms of that. And while Gero himself, I couldn't really see, not to Commander's Red. I always see like Dr. Joe kind of like Hojo, where like he doesn't really care about relationships, but maybe he did it for the sake of science. So I could see how he, actually it's very close to Hojo, the whole like hot wife and everything. Jesus, yeah. So I'm just noticing my manga. Some of them are starting to get dark. Oh no. Oh no, are they getting older? Oh no. Anyway, um, put that back. So yeah, and then so they finally explained that, which explains how Dr. Hedo came to be, and they said how apparently, how Dr. Hedo somehow knows more about androids than Dr. Gero, kind of, sort of. Like they said, he's just as a genius, if not more, at a much younger age. But I mean, like, when it comes to androids, like, he has his grandfather's nose to go off of. His own field of studies, having both an MD and PhD, is impressive, I guess. But anyway, getting off topic. So, Magenta goes to recruit Dr. Hedo, who's in jail for a kind of a blase crime. Like, he reanimated some corpses and turned them into androids, and he had them be store clerks. And he got arrested for, reanimating corpses. And as soon as he gets out of jail, he blows up the jail anyway. So it's like, okay, so he's clearly some type of villain. Until it's established that, like, he likes superheroes and he sees himself as a hero and he doesn't want anything to do with Red Ribbon Army's evil plans. He actually wants to do good, but is only working with them for the money. And it's like, okay, so I guess at worst, he's an anti-hero. Or I guess at best, whatever you want to go on the sliding scale of heroism with. So I guess he's an anti-hero, which is kind of interesting in comparison to Dr. Gero, who was, not. And I like the idea that the Red Ribbon Army, like, when I first heard the Red Ribbon Army was the villains, I got so sick of it, because I'm just so sick of, like, these villains or these certain moments in Dragon Ball ended, stop bringing them back. It was nice for Dr. Gero to come back in Z, because just like one little final hurrah for Red Ribbon Army. But the fact they came back again, I just didn't like. But I'm hoping after this, they're gone for good, because like this was their secret, like, I guess, neo-Nazi second try, for lack of a better word. So let's hope now that they're gone for good, that they're gone for good, and we don't have another Red Ribbon Army thing like 20 years down the line. Anyway, but So yeah, they recruit him with bribing him with Oreos and money, I guess. But um, yeah, and then we then establish who the real protagonist of the movie is, and the marketing lied. It's not a Gohan and Piccolo movie. It is a Piccolo movie that just kind of features Gohan. But I'm not upset about that because Piccolo is like the best part of this movie. So him kind of being the protagonist is great. He gets like the most screen time, and he's like this is like one of the best, most enjoyable Piccolos ever. Like if you miss like stoic Piccolo, you might not like this, but like if you're okay with Piccolo being a little more goofy and having to like basically blend in with society, it's really fun. And like this movie's tone is much more Dragon Ball than Z or Super. It's a lot more humorous until the end, but even in the end, they have some like jokes here and there. But it's actually a pretty funny movie. It really is. There were some chuckles, but also some straight up laughs too. Um, but yeah, Piccolo is the best part about this movie, hands down. And yeah, all the performances in this movie are pretty good too. I watched it in English dub because, of course. But the one thing me and my friend noticed about Pan is that like she's established at 3 years old and does not talk like a 3 year old. Like I made the joke that like he brought up how like when Gohan was young as a 4 year old and we're introduced to him, and they asked, "Oh, how old is he?" He holds up four fingers and goes, "This many." That seems like something a 4 year old would do, but like Pan talks way more like a 5 or 6 year old when she's three, where she still should be kind of like not learning to talk, but her sentence structure shouldn't be as eloquent as adults. And I made the joke as like Gohan at 4 years old. I'm this many years old. Pan at 3 years old. Once upon a midnight dreary, whilst I pondered, weak and weary. But it's kind of like that. It's weird, but the performance isn't bad, and she's adorable. She gets kind of a small arc in this, where it's like she needs to learn how to fly. It's nothing huge, but I guess it's a little something for her. Besides just be a plot device of bringing Gohan to the fray. Um, but yeah, I like the whole thing how like Piccolo is now training her, and is also kind of a nanny for her. Like Videl calls him and says like he'll pick him up. Also, yeah, Piccolo having a house as brief as it was really cute, especially since his all he has really is just like a chair. He doesn't really need much, and it's like the chair that King Piccolo had. It's a nice little callback. There's a lot of really good callbacks in this film, for better or for worse. There's one thing I say it's a little for worse, but there's a lot of good callbacks in this film. Um, to like early Z or just Dragon Ball. Yeah, he has like a throne, but he also has an actual phone, and like he holds it pretty much like a grandparent would. Like he holds it by the top and like hangs it while he's on FaceTime with people. It's really adorable. Because it's something that you wouldn't expect Piccolo to have, but like yeah, and then like um he ends up getting into a fight with one of the androids, Gamma 2. And I'll say this right now, the antagonists, Gamma 1 and 2, are really, really enjoyable. I really like them. And the fact that they are pretty much good guys, they're just kind of following villainous orders until they figure out what's going on. I actually really like the Gammas. Um, Gamma 2 is a lot more of the Joker, not like Joker like Batman, but like the more like goofy type, where Gamma 1 is the more serious type. They can both get, Gamma 2 can get serious, but like, Gamma 2 is more of like the playful child, where Gamma 1 is more of the reprimanding teen, older brother kind of thing, even though they're pretty much like this, I suppose the same age, doesn't really matter, they're androids. Um, Although, when going to this movie, I was thinking like, if this is related to Red Ribbon Army and how big it is for androids, androids 17 and 18 have to play a big role in this movie. It makes sense for their characters. But they established early on that like if they got involved, that the Red Ribbon Army might have their schematics and might be able to shut them down easily. So that makes sense. But also, I kind of get my half wish because 18 shows up for the finale anyway, rocking her GT haircut. Funnily enough, which I think she did have at the end of Z. Now I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Did she have that at the very end of Z? Oh yeah, she did. I completely forgot about that. End of Z, she had the haircut. Okay. So yeah, she's rocking that already, and she's in the movie, and she doesn't like play like a plot important role. She's in the movie to help with the fight, and is helpful in that regard. Anyway, I'm gonna be jumping around a lot, but I'll try and go in order as best I can. But yeah, so Gamma 2 gets in a fight with Piccolo, and it's a pretty decent fight, and he underestimates Piccolo. he calls him Demon King Piccolo, and Piccolo's like going through, oh, I was that, but I was also Kami and blah 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 blah, whatever. He figures out the whole Red Ribbon Army's plan, kind of, sort of. He figures out the Red Ribbon Army's involved, and then he escapes, and then we get a really good part of the movie, which is a long part of the movie, is basically Metal Gear Piccolo. Piccolo disguises himself for a long portion of this movie, and like has to do espionage on what the Red Ribbon Army is doing while also like getting this information to other people. It's a really good part of the movie. It's really funny, but it's also just like to see something Piccolo would usually never do in this. It's pretty, and the fact that he's messing up so well but still getting away with things is just hilarious. It's a really really cool part of the movie, and in my opinion, it was a really good part. And then they mention a lot earlier on than I thought they would. They mention Cell Max. So all that foreshadowing, like constantly mentioning cells, because they have a new version of Cell in the works. They're trying to clone him and, you know, make him an unstoppable force working for them. And Dr. Heto's kind of against it, but he needs the funding for his research. But yeah, Piccolo's able to get all this information to people he needs, but they try to get Goku and Vegeta, who are trading off-world. And one thing about this movie is that I didn't know when it'd take place in conjunction to everything. Like, it obviously takes place after Broly, because they're training with Broly on Beerus' planet, trying to, like, get him to control his power. Like, to be able to power up and fight without losing control. Also, really quick, the way, because overall the shading and, like, the art style and everything, the CG models look good for the movie. Except on Beerus' planet, they look bad. I don't know if it was with the models, with the lighting, with the line work. I don't know what it is, but it looks bad on Beerus' planet. It looks like most of this movie looks like a CG Dragon Ball movie. On Beerus' planet, it looks like the opening of a early PS3 Dragon Ball game. If that makes any sense, it just looks off. But it's not much to this little side plot. It's just like, well, we still need Goku and Vegeta in this movie, and I guess to follow up on Broly, so let's have quick little stuff of them training. Although, in my opinion, the Beerus stuff is the worst part of this movie. It still has charm. I like the fact that Beerus gets a crush on Sheila, because who the fuck wouldn't? Sheila is really fucking hot. But I like the fact that Beerus gets a little crush on her. You know, it's nice to see Broly again, see that he's going to continue on for a while. And we get like a little spar between Goku and Vegeta. Where they can't use power-ups or beam attacks. That's one thing about the fights in this movie. Positive and negative. Positive is that, like, for the most part, they don't use too many, like, beams in this movie. Like, it's very heavily hand-to-hand based. Like, they still fly around, of course, but it's very hand-to-hand based. And I like that. And while they still use beams, it's, like, not as much, so they don't have to worry about spamming it. And the fight scenes in this movie are pretty good for the most part. They don't do too many of the flurry rush attacks. It's a few here and there, but it's not that many. Negatives is that, like, while this movie looks good, I still prefer the look of the Broly movie. Like, that 2D, that art style is just, like, perfect for what Dragon Ball needed. And you can tell it works because not only did One Piece use it for one of its movies, also the Wano arc used it, and it looks great, and it's helping with the animators out big time for that. So if Dragon Ball Super does come back, I still hope they use the Broly art style, and I still prefer that. Plus, with the 2D ones, you could see which animators did what, and you can see their style, whereas, like, this movie, it being 3D and CG, you can't really tell who did what. But to this movie's benefit, it did sometimes use 3D and 2D interchangeably. Like, there were times where some things were 2D, and it's like, you couldn't tell if it was a 3D or 2D model, because it was just that seamless. But there were times that there were 2D. I think they probably did some, like, 2D, like, similar to the Broly movie, where when they had those CG scenes, like, they had the models, but then did 2D overlay. I feel like that's what they did with this movie, which is why it works so well, because it's, like, a bit of a 2D overlay on the 3D models. But, one thing about the fights in this movie is that, like most things that start off 2D and then break into 3D, they need to show, hey, we can do angles and certain positions that we couldn't do in 2D. Let's make sure to show you. And the camera just does not stop moving. Like, there are times, thankfully they do try to make the choreography as, like, visible and clear as possible, but there are times you will be like, what's going on? What's going on? The camera just does not stop shifting around or, like, doing 360s or anything like that. It's kind of ridiculous, and, like, a lot of things nowadays do that, I think is They're still trying to learn more how to use the 3D. Japan's trying to use, like, when it comes to, like, it's so weird. Japan, like, can do good full-on CG movies. Like, Advent Children shows that. Tekken Blood Vengeance shows that. That one was it, Gantz Zero? Looks fucking phenomenal. It shows they can do CG fine. But for some reason, when it comes to CG anime specifically, they're still struggling. And I'm guessing maybe it's a studio thing. I don't think it's a worldwide... No, I don't think it's a countrywide thing. I think some places know how to handle, like, 3D cameras well, but some places that are mostly been doing 2D stuff are still learning. And like I said, while you can still multi-see it, there are times where they just keep moving the camera around, keep doing circles, you can't really tell what's going on. But the overall fights in this movie are good. But back to the whole Goku Vegeta thing. Everyone has a problem with Super Goku. We all kind of miss how Goku was in Z, where he's supposed to be naive, not stupid. Like, when it comes to battle, he is smart. Mind and body, he is smart. He can make plans in battle really well. He knows how to fight. It's just when it comes to, like, more modern society things, he's a little, little absent-minded. He doesn't really understand it, but that's Goku. Everybody, including myself, hates stupid Super Goku. How Super made him a fucking moron. Like, they made him Chapter 1 Goku stupid. And the only reason that Goku is stupid is because he literally lived in the woods his whole life. He has no idea how society works. By the time he's an adult, even if he doesn't understand every single little, like, intricate detail, all, like, little details of life, he understands things more. He's just naive. This one made him a fucking moron to the point where my friend, who kind of defended it, couldn't even defend it in this movie. And it pissed me off to no end when Vegeta's doing meditative training, and Goku's like, oh, Vegeta, you can't train just by sitting there thinking. You need to fight. And it's just like, oh my god, Goku, you did that training in the Cell arc when you were with Gohan in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. Like, you did that training to achieve Ultra Super Saiyan. Did you forget that? You probably did. Because Toriyama probably forgot, which is really ironic given this movie. And then Whis is like, oh, Goku, there's more to train than just muscles. You gotta do your mind. Goku knows that! Goku knows there's more to training than just using your body. He knows you have to think well in battle, too. Why is Goku so stupid in this movie? And then later on, there's actually a post-credit scene in this movie, which is surprising because Broly didn't have that, where at the very end of training, Vegeta wins their sparring match, and they make a joke how Vegeta finally won. But if you think about it, Goku's never won against Vegeta. Like, really think about it. Back in their first fight, they had a big back and forth, and while Goku did beat Vegeta at Kaioken 4, Vegeta wasn't done with the fight. He was still fine-ish. And then he turned to a Great Ape, and at that point, Goku stood no chance and was more or less out for the rest of the battle. And it took the combined might of Gohan, Krillin, and Yajirobe to take Vegeta down. And even then, they still couldn't. He was still moving enough around where Krillin had to try and stab him, and Goku told him, no, don't kill him. But Vegeta was still kind of up and around where everyone else was just, like, almost defeated. Goku himself did not beat Vegeta. And then back in the Majin Vegeta versus Goku fight, Goku technically could have, because of Super Saiyan 3, but obviously Toriyama didn't have Super Saiyan 3 thought of at that point. But, like, what we know, he could have, but they're both equal strength fighting full power Super Saiyan 2, and the fight kind of ended in stalemate because Goku couldn't focus, he wanted to make sure everyone's okay, and Vegeta knocked him out. There was no conclusive winner, so this whole thing about how Goku always beats Vegeta is stupid. If anything, now the score is 1-0 in Vegeta's favor, if you want to count that, even though it's just a sparring match. Like, unless they're kind of like off-screen sparring matches, or maybe Goku always won it, but we don't know that. They're off-screen. But it was kind of a dumb joke. The whole section of Beerus' planet was necessary to understand what's been going on with Broly and stuff like that, but it's kind of dumb. And back to my original thing is that, like, we can't tell where the time it takes place. It takes place after Broly, but where after Broly? Because, there is the manga, the Moro arc takes place after Broly, and the Granola arc takes place, like, immediately after, and the Granola arc just recently finished. So, does this take place after Granola? That's the only thing that makes sense. It can't take place... It could take place maybe before Moro. Little space between the Broly movie and Moro arc. So maybe it could take place then. But in the beginning of the Moro arc, they only talk about Broly. I guess, it makes sense. It could actually make sense there because Goku only talks about Broly. He wouldn't know what would happen on Earth. So I guess it makes sense it could take place before Moro, but I think it makes more sense to take place um, after Granola, given how certain events in this movie would have contradicted Moro stuff. But we don't know. They don't mention anything about that in the movie at all, and they're gonna have to really work their asses off trying to connect where it takes place in this. But yeah, so Goku and Vegeta are off plan for the movie, so they don't have to have an instant win. And even then, they theorize that maybe even Goku and Vegeta could have struggled against the final opponent. So who knows? But they're not here to just walk in and save everybody. Thank God. Um, but Piccolo's kind of like doing the thing of like trying to get Gohan off his ass because Gohan's gotten weaker once again. He's gotten too much into his studies, which people had a problem with him being a scholar. I don't understand. That's what he wanted or was brainwashed to want. But he wanted to be a scholar. I can understand them being upset with him not following up with training. He probably should be doing little bits here and there just to keep up. But, like, he always wanted to be a scholar, and, like, them saying, oh, how dare you, just, like, both in-universe and out-of-universe, like, come on. He wanted this kind of, sort of, let him have this. But I get, like, they want him to make sure he's still up to shape to make sure he can help protect the planet in case his dad can't. But basically, Piccolo's role is to find out about the Red Ribbon Army, try to stop what he can while also getting Gohan back into shape. So he gets the Dragon Balls together, and Dende reminds him how, because they said that the Gamma robots or androids might be too powerful for Piccolo to handle, and Dende mentions how the Elder Guru could unlock potential, and they get the Dragon Balls to unlock Piccolo's potential, which is a pretty cool callback. Also, I hate Bulma in this movie. Like, Bulma is supposed to kind of be whiny and, like, annoying, but, like, she's also smart. She holds her grounds with her brains where everyone else has the muscle. Like, she usually has a purpose. This movie, her purpose is, I have the Dragon Balls. That's more or less it. And I'm just here to make commentary and deride Krillin. God, Krillin gets so shat in this movie in, like, multiple ways. She's just so annoying in this, and, like, the fact she's using the Dragon Balls to keep her age down and make herself look more young. It's just, I don't like Bulma in this movie. The fact that Bulma still has a big role is fine. It makes sense to me, but it's also something very apparent in this movie that Toriyama doesn't know how to use a lot of the characters. Like, besides Goku and Vegeta, he doesn't know what to do with a lot of characters. And it shows with Bulma, like, her main goal now is just, I'm making myself look younger. Like, it's smart for her to, like, always keep the Dragon Balls around so it doesn't get into enemy hands. But then she's using it for very dumb shit. Like, even Piccolo jokes, like, you want a bigger ass, just make sure you do squats or something like that. It's pretty funny. I feel like the English dub has a lot more, like, jokes and, like, self-aware humor peppered in more than Japanese version. I can't confirm that. But, like, there's some things that just seem like, this seems a little too self-aware for the Japanese version to say. Like, there's a point where Gohan takes off his glasses and turns Super Saiyan, but it turns out he actually does need the glasses to see. And Piccolo's like, wait, does the Super Saiyan fix your eyesight? It's kind of funny, but I think that's an English dub, a little pepper in. But then, yeah, so Piccolo's trying to stop their plans however way he can while still trying to get Gohan off his ass. So he tells Pan the whole plan and purposefully gets her kidnapped. And Gohan and Videl, I wouldn't say they're amazing parents, but they're still good parents in a way. Because Videl has martial arts classes, which is why she asked Piccolo to pick her up Pan from preschool. But the bad parent is, you know, oh, I can't come to classes. I mean, a good parent would be like, oh, I can't come to classes, I gotta go pick up my preschooler, maybe I'll come next time or something like that. But it's also a good parent to be like, hey, I'm gonna have someone I trust pick up my daughter. And a bad parent is being like, well, I'm gonna go to my classes, screw my daughter, I guess. And then Gohan's like, I'm more fixated on my scholarly papers right now than getting my daughter back from preschool. They asked Piccolo to do it. But he's also a good parent because as soon as he hears Pan's in danger, he goes berserk. He goes Super Saiyan and destroys his own house. Like, that's more of a good parent. Goku would have needed, like, a twofold thing to do that. Like, if he heard, oh, Gohan's in danger. Oh, well, Super Goku would probably be like, Gohan's in danger. Oh, okay. He's about to be killed. What? And Z Goku would have reacted like Gohan did in this movie, where it's like, Gohan's in danger, I'm angry, I'm coming after you. Super Goku probably would have been like, he's in danger? Okay. And? Oh, and he's on the brink of death. What? Like, the brink of death would have driven him, not, like, the fact that his own family's in danger. But yeah, it shows that at least Gohan is good enough where once Pan's in danger, he gets into serious mode. Um, and then we get basically uh, Goku versus Gamma, and like he is showing that he is really falling behind his training, and that he can't keep up, and like even when he goes Mystic or Ultimate, whatever you want to call it, he just has a hard time keeping up with the androids. And then Piccolo finally joins into the fray, which the reason why Pan went along with Piccolo's plan, even though he was in disguise, is that she immediately sensed it was Piccolo, and Gohan couldn't even do that until he saw Piccolo for himself, which shows how out of practice is that he couldn't even sense Piccolo. That's not good. Um, and then Piccolo gets into a fight with the Gamma android he did before, and we see both his unlocked state, which is he's slightly more yellow and like some details of his body are gone, and then we see his true unlocked state, which is orange Piccolo. I I don't know how to feel about this. I'd like Piccolo's getting like stronger, but like, do we need the whole like, whoa, we have to alter his color and his physique? Like he gets like buff, he gets jacked, and like he himself is orange, but his arms are red. He gets like a big jaw, but like there's nothing special about the form other than how it looks, because like he doesn't get any kind of like new attack only that form would have. He gets stronger defenses, like he's stronger and faster, but like he doesn't really get like anything that could call this form unique other than the color. Like maybe this form can only do a move that he could like is strong enough to do a move he's been practicing but couldn't do, kind of thing. I don't know. Like I feel like there needs to be more to this than just I'm stronger and faster. But this is modern Dragon Ball. This is actually that's just Dragon Ball in general. Like the problem with Dragon Ball is that like when you have a power system that's based off numbers and not say like specific skills, it creates a problem, which I'll get to a little later. Um, but yeah, they get into this whole big tussle, and they do start winning against the Gammas when the Gammas are starting to realize who the real opponents are. And then, Piccolo's like, get as many of Earth's greatest fighters as you can that you can find on short notice to help with this. And then they bring out Hedo tries to stop Magenta, and they get into a little comedic scuffle. But then, even though Cell Max isn't finished, they bring out Cell Max, and Cell Max's design is kind of like a mix. It's kind of like, remember that one part where when semi-perfect Cell is going perfect, he has like a little bit of perfect's like body type with him. It's kind of like that, except he's giant, red and green. Like his colors aren't green, black, and I guess not wouldn't really be purple, but like pale. I guess his color in this movie is black, red, and green, and he is huge. He's less Cell and more of a mix of Hirudegarn and Hachiyak. That's a fucking pull, right? But he's basically a kaiju. Honestly, he's huge, and I'm pretty sure they wanted a more perfect Cell look, but because he was finished early, he's like semi-perfect Cell stuck like in between states, and he's definitely more of a mindless monster. He has no personality other than roar. Like Broly has more of a personality than Cell Max, and like this has been one of my problems with a lot of modern Dragon Ball stuff, is that Beerus, it was a good thing we got Beerus. It was a brand new antagonist with a new personality, and he's a really endearing character. But then after that, a lot of the villains, not a lot of them, but some of the villains have just been bringing back old ones. We had Resurrection F, which originally I wasn't opposed to the idea of Frieza coming back. It was the execution that was terrible. But the idea of him coming back wasn't a problem. And then with the Tournament of Power, it was the opposite, where I didn't want him to come back again, but the execution was so good that I'm okay with Frieza being back. We'll have to see how he handles him, because the same day the movie came out, the new chapter of the manga came out, and there's developments with Frieza with that too. But anyway, and then the whole thing about let's bring Broly back, which similar Resurrection, like this was kind of like Frieza's second thing, where it's like I didn't like this idea, but the execution turned out so well that I'm glad Broly's back. And then this movie kind of does the thing of bringing Cell back, kind of, sort of. It's not actually Cell, it's a clone of him, and he's kind of mindless. I just don't want this constant rehashing of villains, because this one, I was worried about it, and the execution did not save it. It's not a bad moment in the film, but I just did not like the fact that he's kind of just back just for something specific I'll get into. But, like, I don't want them to bring Cooler and make him canon. I don't want them to bring back, Some like there's not too many other villains you can get back from, but like I don't want them to bring back more shit. They brought back the Red Ribbon Army already. That's two other things they brought back. Like stop bringing back villains. Super, you are getting more villains that are unique. We have Goku Black and Moro and Gas. Keep on that train. Don't make Dr. Wheelo canon. Don't make Turles canon. Just keep them, non-canon, please. Um, but then they bring in Cell Max, and everyone struggles, and they actually bring in Goten and Trunks, who are now finally grown up. They make a joke about why Goten and Trunks are so tall already, and Gohan's like, "Oh well, Saiyans stay small for the entire life until we hit a major growth spurt." True for Goku and Goten and Trunks. Not true for Gohan. Gohan, actually, you could see he had a progressive growth. The only time there was a skip was when the Buu Saga. But like you could see from when he's 4 up until he's like 12-ish, you can see him actually grow like a normal child would. But the reason why that whole short thing happens because back in Dragon Ball they wanted to keep Shonen Jump wanted to keep Goku young, and Toriyama had a fight to make him grow up. And then this one with Goten and Trunks, they just kept them young because they're more recognizable young, and then they're finally adults because they have to because it's getting close to the end of Z. And they try the fusion, and even though everyone wants to see adult Gotenks, we get the fat version. We get to hear adult Gotenks, but they tease it a second time too, because right after the fight ends, they have them fused, but it's entirely off screen, so you can't see what it looks like. But they have adult Gotenks, but fat. Krillin and 18 joined the fight, so I'm glad they did bring in 18. And Krillin gets so shafted, like, everyone keeps making fun of how weak he is, despite the fact he's kind of imperative to make sure... He's imperative in a few moments. Like, if it weren't for him, certain things wouldn't have worked. So I hate that they keep making fun of Krillin so bad. Like, they Yamcha Krillin as much as they can. I just don't like it. And then, like, everyone's struggling to beat Cell Max, and then Krillin has to remind Piccolo of an old technique of his, that he can turn giant. Which, I like the callback that Piccolo can turn giant. I don't like that Krillin had to remind Piccolo of his own technique. And the fact that Piccolo barely uses techniques in this movie, besides his stretchy arm and special beam cannons, kind of like, no Hellzone Grenade, no Light Grenade, no Masenko, no nothing new, like, no techniques, like, I don't know, it just seems a little weird. My nose is stuffed for some reason. But the fight, there's a moment I kind of like how, like, he doesn't have, Cell Max doesn't start off with spots, and then he Shin Godzilla spots into him. Basically, he does the Shin Godzilla, like, lasers everywhere things, and that's what forms his spots. I don't know how I feel about that, but he has a few Shin Godzilla moments. But then we actually get a kaiju fight between Piccolo and Cell Max. You have a giant Piccolo versus Cell Max. It's kind of cool, I guess. I won't deny it's a little cool. But then we get the final parts where Piccolo's saying, Gohan, please, draw into your skill. You have the power to be the strongest, hero if you just, kept up and drew the power within. And then, what I do like is that this movie is PG-13, which I think this is the first PG-13 Dragon Ball movie, because most of them have been, like, PG or the PG equivalent, I guess, like TV, PG, I guess maybe even TV-14 could kind of work as PG. This movie is actually PG-13. There is, not to the extent of Z, but there's actually some Z violence in here, and I'm glad because as brutal as the Broly movie it was still super amount of violence. There was no blood, it was only bruises. This movie actually has blood, and it actually brings back the red bruises. Remember in Z, like, even if they didn't have blood, they would have both black and red bruises? Super only has the black bruises. You don't have the red ones. This movie actually brings back some of the red ones, and it's Z-era violence because not only does Piccolo bleed, he bleeds a lot, and it's not the purple blood or his weird green goop, it's red. He bleeds red blood, and then at one point he loses an arm. He regenerates it off screen, but he loses an arm. That's more Z-era violence, and I'm so glad. It's also PG-13 because of some smoking in the movie, whatever. And it's only Piccolo that bleeds. Everyone else only has super amounts of violence as opposed to Z amounts of violence. But finally something more Z-related, thank God. But point being, everyone's defeated. Gamma 2 sacrifices himself in vain. He only manages to wound Cell. He doesn't defeat him, and he kind of dies for it. Gamma 1's still around, which I'm glad that I'm glad that Gamma 1's still around. I actually want to see more of the Gammas, or Gamma, I guess. I want to see more of Gamma later on, like kind of with Broly. I want to see how they integrate them and not forget about them. I thought they were both gonna die. I thought everything related to Red Army's gonna die. No, Dr. Hedo and Gamma survive. The other, the main assistant of Magenta, um, survives, but I think Magenta dies. I'm not sure. I think he dies. It makes sense that he dies. Although the assistant might have died too in like Cell Max's Rampage. That's possible. Um, but yeah, even throughout like the serious fights, there's a lot of jokes. Like, even with the Gamma fights, there were a lot of like jokes. Some pretty funny jokes too. The Gamma fight like wasn't too serious, but the Cell Max fight is. And one problem I do have is that like, why couldn't this be a more personal story? It was doing that with the Gammas, where they were directly targeting Gohan and Piccolo and friends. It was more personal. And even if they did bring back Cell, I think he should have been strong enough to handle everybody, but not so strong he could threaten the entire world. But this being Dragon Ball, everything has to be world-ending stakes. I guess it's not too bad because most things now are universe-ending stakes, where Cell's only world-ending. I guess that's more personal in the world of Dragon Ball, but I was hoping for a more personal thing, but of course Cell has to be strong enough to destroy the world, because of course. I just wish it was a lot more personal so we didn't have to worry about always having world-ending stakes, always like, we have to make sure these people are strong enough to defeat the universe-ending stakes, but whatever. Like I said, that's what happens when you have number-based power systems. And then we get a moment where Piccolo seemingly dies, and Gohan snaps in a similar vein to when he snapped when Android 16 died. Which is kind of cop-out when you think about it, because back in Z, he didn't really know Android 16. He knew he was peaceful, but he didn't really know anything about him. He didn't relate to him. Why would he get so angry when 16 of all people died? I think Dragon Ball Z Kakarot actually fixed that by having them interact a bit, which makes more sense. But, like, why would Gohan be so sad that 16 died? Anyway, my main problem with this movie is Gohan's arc and how that relates to the final fight. Toriyama has no idea what to do with Gohan, which is why he literally keeps having the same arc over and over and over. And once Gohan snaps in this movie, he gets so angry he gets a new form, Gohan Beast. I like the idea of Gohan Beast. I hate the design of it. I like the whole silver hair and red eyes thing works well, but that hair is too big for his head. It looks so fucking dumb. It should have been just Mr. Gohan with silver hair and red eyes. But no, it's... Because I like the red lightning around the white energy. That looks cool. I hate the way his hair looks. It's too big. And it looks dumb in the 2D concept art. It looks terrible as a CG model. It looks awful. You know, back in like the... you know how like in the anime and Budokai Tenkaichi where they make Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's hair proportionate to his body... But in Budokai 2 and 3, they have, like, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's hair bigger than his body and it looks weird. It's like that before adult Gohan. It looks stupid. And it's another case of Super's thing of we need another bullshit power-up that's more or less just a recolor kind of, sort of. And it's because, like, you know, we have Black Frieza now, and with Orange Piccolo. And, like, at least Orange Piccolo and Gohan Beast do have some differences where Black Frieza is just Golden Frieza, but black. He gets a free N-word pass. But the thing with Gohan is that everybody remembers Gohan for his big climactic fight with Cell. And I say fight where it's more of a curb stomp in one direction than the other, but everyone remembers that, and then Gohan's arc has always been, I'm slacking, I need more power. I'm slacking, I need more power. Like, after the Buu saga, he got weaker due to, you know, going to school. And he does train up a bit, but he's still weaker. And then he gets the Deus Ex Machina bullshit ass-pull power-up of, oh yeah, I'll just unlock your inner strength, now you're Mystic Gohan. And then in Super, he slacks in his training again, and he's a detriment to the fight with Frieza. He can't do anything. And when they need people for the Tournament of Power, they have to retrain him because he lost his Mystic form. And within the course of 24 hours, he gains back the Mystic form, or Ultimate form, whatever you want to call it, and gets stronger again. for the tournament of power, and then it happens again in this movie. He's slacking again when he draw even more hidden power. The only difference is that this time he just powers up to that power. I like how Kyle Hebert gave him like a Super Saiyan 3-esque voice with this form, but like as soon as Gohan turns Beast, like the fight's done. He gets Cell can't do anything. Gohan gets a couple hits in, and they defeat Cell. He does it with Special Beam Cannon, which is kind of Special Beam Cannon, which is cool. But like, my problem is they're thinking the only thing that Gohan's known for, his most big moment is, was Gohan versus Cell. So let's kind of do that again, because it's what everyone knows Gohan for. So they're reusing his character arc for like the fucking 40th time, while also trying to remind us of Gohan's shining moment, and not doing it as well. I feel like Gohan Beast should have had a more even fight against Cell Max. I originally wanted Cell Max to kind of be like I like the green and red and like the elongated tail. I originally kind of wanted him to be in his perfect form. I don't know about I originally wanted him to have a personality too, even if he didn't recognize Gohan. But my friend convinced me that it's kind of better he didn't have it. But I was thinking like a compromise where he wasn't mindless, but he couldn't talk. You kind of had to like see what he was thinking with his emotions, but the fact that like he was emerged early makes sense why he's not fully perfect form and makes him more of a monster. I get that. But it wasn't much of a fight. Once Gohan goes Beast, the fight's kind of over. And I don't like how they're handling Gohan and how it's either he has no power, let's bring it back, and let's remind people about his moment with Cell. Even the BoJack movie did that, where he could have gone Super Saiyan 2 the whole time, but we have to bring it back to his fight with Cell. He even gets the same like blood, droplets of blood on his forehead and his mouth, like in that fight, to remind people of that. You know, he fought Cell, and it's just like after that thing with Cell, they don't know what to do with Gohan, and Gohan's kind of always had ass pull powers, but like I think this one's probably the most ass pully, because like Z built up to this whole thing about his inner rage, and that came to a head with Super Saiyan 2, and after that it's just kind of like, well, he has more hidden power, but he's too weak to bring it out. So we just have someone else bring it out, or he just magically does it himself, and that's kind of with this too, where it's like he just magically kind of does it himself now too. Gohan hasn't really had that kind of rage thing since he was a kid. So it's just more like bringing it back to that, and I don't like that. I don't like how they handled Gohan's new form, Gohan's arc, all that stuff. Which is why I think Piccolo was the best part of this movie. But then, you know, the fight ends and everyone's happy and the world's safe, and Dr. Hedo now works for Capsule Corporations. And the movie ends in another reset. There's no lead into what could happen next. It kind of has a nice clean end. So I don't know what's going to happen next. If we're going to have something that's still before the end of Z or something after the end of Z, I don't know where the story's going to go. And in relation to the manga story, I don't know. But my overall thoughts of the movie, it's good. It's very good. It's very funny. I think the story... Oh, wait, one thing I should mention that like I do like how... One problem with Dragon Ball now, because Toriyama's not fully... He's writing it, but he's not fully in charge of it. He's not fully writing and drawing it. He was never fully in charge of editors, but he's not fully writing and drawing it. He's just doing kind of the writing. And because of that, like... The flow of fights is not like how it used to be, where there's story in the fights. The fights themselves can have, like, stories, I guess. If you look up the science of a fight scene or how fight scenes work, you can see how fight scenes themselves have stories. But, like, with Z and even Dragon Ball, there still would be actual plot and narrative in the fights. Not just the story of the fight scene, but actual narrative in the fight scenes. And that's something that's been lacking in a lot of things. Like, as much as I love the Broly movie, it is kind of like, once the fighting happens, it kind of doesn't stop. There's little bits here and there, like with Goku subduing Broly temporarily, you know, little bits of plot, but once the fighting starts, it doesn't stop. I like how this movie actually does still have narrative in the fights. It feels a lot more like Z. I'm so glad this movie feels more like Z, even more than Broly did. So I did want to mention that. I do commend the film for having more actual narrative in the fights, not just once the fighting stops, all talking stops, and we just have the story of the fight as opposed to the narrative in the fight. You know what I mean? So I should have got some water. Yeah, and then the movie ends. So my thoughts is, I do like the movie. I think it is actually really good. The art style is not too distracting. The fight scenes are good. when they're not moving the camera around too much. The humor's really good. I like the actual overall story. I like Piccolo's role in this. And like I like certain like confirmations of things early on in the movie here and there. I don't like Gohan's arc. I don't like the fact they keep bringing back villains and like just new power ups are just kind of recolors with no real purpose other than stronger and faster. Um, I would say this is one of the best Dragon Ball movies, but personally, I still prefer the Broly movie. And like even with some of that movie's flaws, I still prefer the Broly movie. I would watch that movie over and over and over again. Also because I'm a Gogeta stan. So Gogeta is my favorite, so um, but like this movie, I might watch at least one more time. But the Broly movie, I could watch over and over and over and over. I fucking love that movie. That being said, I still think this is one of the best Dragon Ball movies, and it is definitely worth a watch. There's just little niggles here and there that kind of prevent it from being better than Broly, if not like the best Dragon Ball movie. There's still just some things I just don't like, and it's just how they handle Gohan, and the constant like having to remind people about how great Gohan used to be, and bringing back villains and the recolors, and like certain characters' roles like Krillin, Android 18, and Goten and Trunks only come in at the end because they just want more people with the fight, as opposed to them being integrated into the plot naturally, as opposed to just now we're just popping them in. And like the fight scenes, like while they're good for the most part, I'm glad there was more martial arts based than just beam spamming or punch spamming. How like the camera just needs to stop moving and focus on the fight. But I think overall it is a very good movie. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting some stuff that I'm gonna be like, oh, I should have said this in the podcast. But these are my basic overall thoughts on Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Pretty good movie. Got some problems. I hope in the future they figure out. I want Toriyama to actually figure out what to do with characters that aren't just Goku and Vegeta, and not just keep reusing arcs over and over, or just let's just have them have a power up. I don't want this CG look to continue. They definitely can't. If the TV show comes back, they definitely can't continue with that. That's too much. I don't think I want to continue for the movies, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait a few years to see. So, yeah, that's Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Hope you enjoyed. Tell me how you felt about the movie if you've seen it. What's your favorite Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z movie or whatever, and why Resurrection F is actually the worst. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see ya.